Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. Okay, we should definitely touch on this. I wanted to wait until my own spoiler embargo had elapsed to start covering something like this, but to put it bluntly, this is a big spoiler. If you've somehow gotten this far and somehow want this reveal to be left for you to uncover on your own, please leave now. Also, go play the raid, you get it there. So with that said, let's talk about that one line that I wanted to save for myself, which meant I didn't cover this until I saw it myself in the raid and my own spoiler embargo had elapsed. A line that confirms everything that some of us law scholars have suspected for a long, long time. Take a listen.
You fear answers. Fear the truth you claim to seek. Look beyond this dying garden, or rot in entropy. Each child we save from the game, you again force to play. You call us winnower. We are not. But the first knife clutched in its hand. Gods forged us both. But they cannot tell the knife what shape to carve.
This line, this one line of dialogue, has confirmed to us the scale of the universe before us, and has done more to confirm almost a decade's worth of lore speculation than anything else in the game or its lore. The Witness puts it bluntly here. In what it thinks is its moment approaching victory, it tells us that it is not the winnower. Equally in the sentence where the Witness states that gods forged us both, it seems to state that the winnower does in fact exist, and that it, as its first knife, is the result of the winnower's creation. To put that into context for those who don't understand the significance of this, and to muddle a few metaphors quite greatly, this is the equivalent of us learning that God and the devil are real, and that right now we have been fighting nothing more than one of the devil's underlings that's gone rogue. And that they have been in the background of our story this whole time. Momentarily, I want to cut here and just say that later on in the video, we're going to talk about some more lore implications for the winnower's existence and questions that inevitably get answered later on, but for the moment here and now, I think I need to get everyone on the same page. So, with the benefit of a little hindsight, and with the understanding of unveiling better displayed to us, let's talk about what the winnower is. To put it simply, the winnower is one of two godlike figures that, if we're to believe them, were one of the true progenitors of all the things in the Destiny universe as we know them. Alongside the Gardener, the winnower was a force at the beginning of the universe, or before the beginning of the universe, that defined the shape of all things that followed. This is based on the unveiling texts, but those texts are no less important, even though it's clear that some of their context is metaphorical. I'm going to need to break down a lot of lore to create a more concrete timeline of the exact events at the beginning of the universe. There is one event that we know must have been true, and that's that the Gardener and the winnower fought. Within the garden at the beginning of time, supposedly they, quote, brought down the tree of silver wings and left its stump to smoke amid the meadows. Something we know that must have happened, because at this point we've seen it. It's there in Garden of Salvation at the heart of the raid. We rise to meet that distant mesa, and it turns out that it isn't a mesa at all. It's a stump. The remains of a tree, its roots still gnarled and burned out. It might not necessarily be the same tree in the metaphor, it might not necessarily mean that the metaphor of the story of unveiling is all true, but we do know that something brought down this tree of silver wings, and at current, the Gardener and the winnower are our key suspects. This occurred because of a fundamental philosophical disagreement, according to the winnower, all the way back when they were playing something known as the Flower Game, a series of possibilities that played out in front of them in repeated patterns that always reached the same shape. The Gardener desired an additional rule that allowed for complexity to exist in this Flower Game, and for life to exist beyond the persistent final shape that occurred within the universe that always triumphed. A shape that always followed the same pattern needed to no longer be the only victor in the gardener's eyes. There needed to be something more complex that could grow. Please do note, this final shape that I make reference to within the flower game is not the same as the final shape as the witness perceived of it. This is the final shape in more of a manner as the Hive know it, a universe where only the strongest life survives. From that disagreement, the winnower looked down and supposedly the first knife had appeared in his hands. This is a crucial moment within the lore as it contextualizes the rise of the witness and gives us an idea of what the winnower's response to the gardener might have been. And it also gives us an opening moment, I believe, for the entire Light and Dark saga. So let's go ahead and read from Unveiling, and read the allegory of the first knife from the first knife lore entry. It reads as follows. I looked up in shock. I said, "What? What do you mean?" "A special new rule. Something to..." The gardener threw up their hands in exasperation. "I don't know. To reward those who make space for new complexity, a power that helps those who make strength from heterodoxy, and who steer the game away from gridlock. Something to ensure there's always someone building something new. It'll have to be separate from the rest of the other rules running in parallel, so it can't be compromised, and we'll have to be very careful so it doesn't disrupt the whole game." "All you will do," I said, with rising panic, fury, "is delay the dominant pattern that will overrun the others. It is inevitable. One final shape." "No, it'll be different. Everything will be different. Everywhere you look." "Everything will be the same. Your new rule will only make great false cysts of horror full of things that should not exist, that cannot withstand existence, that will suffer and scream as their rich blisters fill with effluent and rot around them. And when they pop, they will blight the whole garden. Whatever exists because it must exist, and because it permits no other way of existence, has the absolute claim to existence. That is the only law." "No," the gardener said. "I am the growth and preservation of complexity. I will make myself into a law in the game." And thus we too became parts of the game, and the laws of the game became gnomic and open to change by our influence. And I had only one purpose and one principle in the game, and I could do nothing but continue to enact that purpose, because it was all that I was and ever would be. I looked at the gardener. I looked at my hands. I discovered the first knife. When the witness calls itself the first knife, it is referencing Unveiling here for certain, but I think we can map this moment onto history, namely the history of the Precursors, and use it to get even greater context on the creation of this terrible being of power that we would one day come to know as the Witness. We can also use it to get more context on the actions of the Winnower, I feel. I do want to say that what I'm putting forward here is purely theoretical because I'm trying to transcribe analogy and myth into real chronology with sound events, so don't take what I'm about to say as absolutely true. This is just my thoughts and interpretations. With that said, I think that the moment where the Gardener and the Winnower became a part of the game is the same moment where they appeared within the universe and created great structures for themselves. I think this might have been the moment where the Gardener and the Winnower created the Veil and the Traveler. Following this moment, the Gardener, or rather the Traveler, was discovered by the Precursor civilization, and the Traveler gave them the abundance that we've come to know from it. But the Precursor people sought purpose amongst their plenty, purpose that the Traveler wasn't willing to give. And so they searched the universe for it, and eventually found the Veil, linked cosmically to the signal of the Traveler, two of a similar family. If the Winnower was within the Veil, or was in control of it, or was somehow linked to it, then it was likely the force that led the Precursor people to the original principle of combining the light and darkness by bringing the Veil and the Traveler together, The Winnower would have then been in the perfect place to create change within the Precursors after the Traveler left, and to create the conditions for their change into the Witness. The Precursors, and the Witness by extension, were his first knife. They knew who created them. And the Witness, well, it didn't care, because their purpose was made clear from the moment onwards. They knew that they would find their own way and enforce the final shape as they saw it, hence why they state that the Winnower cannot control how the first knife carves. So with that in mind, perhaps there is much more context to the beginning of the story of Destiny now, and that context has been lended to us by the slow and steady motions of the Gardener and Winnower across this great game that they play. We also have a little further reinforcing lore on this topic, which I just have to share with you all. It comes from a ship that you get from the Pale Heart destination, and that ship, what do you know, is called the First Knife. It details a conversation and discussion between Mara Sov and Ikora Rey. This discussion contemplates the role of the Witness and whether it is linked to something else further out. I think it's worth remembering that when Bungie does this, sometimes it is a red herring and sometimes it alludes to something more in the story. Keep both possibilities in mind, and let's see what they have to say. The ship's lore tab reads as follows. When I first encountered the Witness, I heard it proclaim to me, "We are the first knife." Mara's words are as thin as her hopes. She looks hollow under the helm's emergency lighting, hunched over a console, watching an ascending red line on a graph. Something about the line's inevitable upward climb had triggered her memory. They have to follow the Witness into the Traveler, and soon. It was as if the title held power, meaning, Mara says as the line ticks up again. She leans away from the console, turning to look at Ikora, who stands staring intently at the portal. She feels the same uptick in energy coming from it. Ikora nods, watching Mara's reflection. The apocryphal texts we dug up on the moon, the ones Eris translated, mentioned the knife as a concept. Mara comes to stand beside Ikora. And even if we consider that unveiled text as dogmatic propaganda, there may be truth behind the allegory, she agrees, remembering the texts and the translations Eris made of them. The knife becomes the metaphor of a concept, a power, a knife that winnows, cutting things into a defined shape. A power that winnowed living beings into Taken. Ikora turns to face Mara, searching for the awoken queen's eyes. A power Oryx wielded. The emphasis on the last word makes her point, and Mara picks up on it. You're wondering if the knife is a title or a power? Mara deciphers Ikora's steely countenance. Did Oryx wield the power of the Witness like a knife? Ikora shifts her gaze back to the portal. The Witness is a manipulator. It distorts the truth to bend the wills of its supplicants. The allegorical fantasy told to us by the Witness paints itself as a monolithic cosmic force, but perhaps that's a shadow cast by the truth. Mara watches Ikora, sensing her ease a little. This idea has tempered Ikora's earlier anxieties over the future. This conversation has tempered her own, after all. Even though her brother feels distant and faint, in the moment, he is out of her mind. A knife is a tool, wielded by another's hand, Mara offers. If the Witness is the knife, as it asserts, then what wields it? Ikora asks the Traveler, though it does not reply. The words are meant for Mara's ears too. The Witness is not a being, she agrees. It is the culmination of a bleak ethos willed into existence by the nihilistic desires of its creators. Is their will the hand on the knife, or is there something else? Ikora's fingers slip from the corners of revelation, and her thoughts plummet into more intimate worries and doubts. Mara sees her fall, and lets herself tumble into the same precipice, joining her in worry. I don't know. This conversation is of note not just because it seems to double back on the idea that the Witness is not necessarily the creator of the Taken, but a wielder of them in the same way that Oryx was, thus implying that the power to do so is from a common source. But it also further contextualizes the Witness's statements about it being the first knife. It also poses that last ominous question to us. Even though the Witness says it was independent of the Winnower's will, is that really true? Is it truly a knife all unto itself? Or is it a tool being wielded by another, an implement to do the bidding of one who holds it? And so that makes me wonder further. Why would the Winnower create the Witness, especially after the Witness brought about a risk to the whole of existence as we know it? As far as I can see, there is only one answer to this question. Again, it's theoretical, so don't take it as truth or treat it dogmatically, but just think of it as one possible answer to this question, the only one that I can see at the moment. I think the Winnower was trying to introduce darkness into the heart of the Traveler, and I think in this moment, if this was the goal of the Winnower, by introducing the Witness into the Pale Heart, it succeeded. This might have been the play that the Winnower has been trying to enact for a long time. After all, why create something which goes against your own goals if in the process of accomplishing its own goals, yours also succeed? Bringing darkness into the heart of the Traveler and enacting its version of the final shape was something we inevitably would rise to stop. But the interface of light and dark within the Traveler is now the result of the Witness's meddling, and is the result of us entering within its pale heart as well. We might have furthered the goal of the Witness and its designs in this long, long game of existence. But what happens? Why was this done? What was the ultimate goal? Was it to change the perspective of the Gardener? Was it to change the power of the light? Was it to change the Traveler? Was it to release the echoes? Was it something that we still haven't seen? I don't know. The questions that evolve from this point will be myriad and will merit constant revision and discussion, but for the moment I think I can tell you this definitively. The Winnower isn't a myth anymore. It exists, as concrete and confirmable as the Witness was. It was the force that led to the creation of the Witness, its first knife. The Flower Game marches on, and the next moves made in that game will be like waves battling against the shore. Finally, before we end this video, I wanted to discuss a few blunt questions that people might have and to give you my takes on them. First of all, can we kill the Winnower? Maybe. This is an entity of immense cosmic power, and it would be no small feat, but if the Traveler can be wounded, and if the Traveler is then linked to the Gardener, then perhaps something similar is possible to the Winnower through the means of the Veil. That's very speculative, though. Should we kill the Winnower is the next question, and to this I say, maybe not. If a single hypothesis of the universe, light and dark, and how all things have existed prevails now, it seems to be that of Ulan Tan, who states that the light and dark must exist together, and if they don't exist together, then, well, truly there is damnation for all of the universe. If the Winnower and Gardener have existed since before the dawn of time, killing one of them might fundamentally upend the universe as we know it, and so maybe we need to understand more about this new potential foe before we engage it in combat, and before we seek to remake the universe without it in the picture. And lastly, will we see the Winnower in future storylines? And to this I have to say undoubtedly, yes. Unlike the Gardener, who is willing to stay silent and allow us to make our own complex fates, make our own purposes, and give us the gifts needed to accomplish them along the way, the Winnower has one purpose: the sword logic, that majestic shape of victory realized by the Hive. The simple idea that only the strongest thing in the universe will survive. It has no reason to be passive in this universe. It may start to see its own plans unfold. If it is to be passive, then it is to watch things continue to fulfill that purpose of dying until the universe gutters out to one thing, one perfect, majestic, final shape. But I believe that there will be some who are indeed reached out to by this great being. After all, I believe it's reached out to others before this moment. Sure as I am of anything, I am now sure that it was the Winnower, not the Witness, that spoke to Oryx in the Books of Sorrow. When Oryx created and sacrificed an unbound ogre within the depths of his own throne world, when he walked into the deep with the Tablets of Ruin, and when the deep itself arrived, I believe that was the Winnower, not the Witness. If the Winnower does reach out and speak to us, I expect that it is intervening to accomplish its direct purpose. That appears to be its goal after all, a goal that it has been trying to fulfill since its existence began. If it decides to act soon, or even now, it will change the fate of the universe forever. The Light and Dark saga is over, but in the next saga, I wonder already what sword will replace the first knife. We have yet to see. There will inevitably be more stuff on the Winnower. I don't know this to be true, but I've heard whispers that the Winnower is prominently mentioned, or maybe even is the perspective speaking within the raid lore. Having only unlocked one book myself, I can say that that's not universally true. The first book of the lore book comes from the Witness. That much I know. That being said, more needs to be discovered, and I need to discover all of that for myself. My first impressions of the Salvation's Edge raid will be coming at some point soon, but I still need to get a team together to actually complete it. This, however, was too juicy not to initially talk about, and people have been asking for this for a very long time, so I figured I'd get right to it and make sure we covered this. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, go ahead and let me know down below in the comments section, and please leave your own thoughts too. This is a major topic. I'm very interested to see if I've missed something here. That being said, if you want more Destiny lore and more videos from me, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe. And welcome to the 25,000 new subscribers this month alone. Very nice to have you all. That being said, know that as per usual, your viewership as always is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia Arastra. I'll see you Starside.